today, this is a very unusual kind of event for us. We don't normally fly by the seat of our pants like this, but we decided to last week when Christian and I were talking, and he was sharing with me some of the client data that he's been recently tracking, specifically around advertising, but even some other components to it that were very eye-opening, and also speak to an issue that he and I were just chatting about, that some people in the tax resolution world may not be aware is possible. So we're going to talk about some of the things that we're seeing just real quickly. I assume before I get into bios and such, let's just quick housekeeping. Again, a lot of you have already been prolific in the chat. Please continue. We will be engaging there. But if you have a question that you want to make sure that we see, the best place to put it is the actual Q&A option. And so that's something that everybody gets to see as well. So there's a difference between the chat and the Q&A. The Q&A is really if something we said triggers some sort of, either thing that you want us to talk about that might be different, or a question as well. That's for the Q&A. All right, let's introduce everybody who's here quickly. You guys, most everyone knows me, so I'm not going to go into my whole bio. CEO of Tax Pro Marketer, blah, 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 blah. That's my family. A lot of you know that I have kids and lots of them, blah, blah, blah. Some of you should know Christian. A lot of you do, especially those who are existing clients. He is the vice president of Tax Pro Marketer, and we hired him 7 or 8 years ago, and it was one of the best choices we ever made in our agency to bring this young man, he's not so young anymore, into our world. So Christian so we're both a little bit remote, if you can't tell. I am neither of us in the Tax Pro Marketer offices. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina on a road trip with my family. My parents live here, and we're heading to Hilton Head next week. Christian is actually at his father's office. His father runs a big landscaping company in the Kansas City area, but also has been the host of The Land for Christian's side business for, I think, 15 years this year, right, Christian?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. 15 years. Yeah, I am feeling the age, Phil. Anyway, Christian has been running his own side fireworks stand business that is like a 2-week sprint every year, and that starts next week. And so he is a little bit distracted. Not only that, but his wife's due date is July 4th. So officially, we're all hoping baby number 3 comes sooner, but man, oh man.
Or later. I mean, after the
or later.
Maybe
I think later would probably be better.
Maybe later.
That's true. Never mind. I'm hoping it comes sooner.
Yeah.
Christiana's hoping it comes sooner.
That's
all right.
That's
enough.
Right.
And yeah, that's actually Christian and his far more amazing wife. So he's an amazing man. His wife is really close to my wife, and we've known her for actually longer than we've known Christian, and she's amazing. Okay, enough. Dan Henn, who I don't have a bio slide for, I'm going to actually pause for a moment and introduce you. Oh, Andy. Andy's in the house. Maybe we'll make you a panelist at some point, Andy. You've got some interesting things to share about this stuff, I'm sure, as well. But anyway, Dan, I'm going to hold off on introducing you more fully because I just want to start out with a question in the chat. I am very interested to know, those of you who are here with us live, and we've got many, are you currently offering tax resolution services? So put a yes or a no in the chat if this is something that you're already doing. I'm interested to see if there's anyone who is not offering these services, because I imagine that, like, when I put out the information about this, that it was going to be mostly appealing to those who are already doing it. But I'm glad to see a few no's, because hopefully what Dan is going to share, and if those of you who are already doing this, good. I'm seeing a lot of stuff. Good. A lot of yeses, but there's definitely some limitations and some no's out there too. So this is really interesting. Okay. I'm glad to see this. So yeah, again, are you currently offering tax resolution services? Yes or no? Just put it in the chat. And now you also see, by the way, why questions are best not put in the chat, because, flurry of responses. So that's interesting. Okay. So most of you are. I imagined as I put out the information for this webinar that there would be a lot of resolution-oriented folks doing it. I already decided I didn't want a steady diet of dealing with hateful IRS agents. Dan might have a thing or two to say about that. There's probably ways to ameliorate that concern. But regardless, it's true. But to Ernie's point, back in '97, dealing with the IRS was a pain. Oh my, 2022. 2022 says, hold my beer, right? Because we've all seen this photo, right? I mean, I put that in the email for this. Dan, had you seen this photo before?
No. I don't think so.
Okay,
Actually,
so this was actually shared on social media by a Treasury official on Twitter a few days ago.
Oh no.
And this was a photo of the IRS offices in Austin. And these are the paper returns just in the offices, the Austin Processing Center. These are the paper returns, still yet to be manually keystroked in, line by freaking line. And so it's a good chance that your client paper returns are pictured there. And you wonder why people have a problem dealing with the IRS. Yes, Ernie says 50 of his client returns are in there. Yep. No, I mean, that's a horrifying reality. And it's only getting worse. You know, if you saw the TIGTA report come out a couple of days ago, there is, I will, Alexander, check my email from Tuesday, I think, or Monday. It might've been Monday. It's in there, but I'll get it out to you. So here's the reality. This reality of the IRS issues. Oh, and by the way, all of you are dealing with the faulty notices that are going out and all of the miscommunication. They lost 30 million information returns. And so we all kind of get this landscape. The vast majority of you are already doing this kind of work for your clients. Those of you who don't, there's a way that you can actually turn this into your favor from a revenue and business standpoint. Obviously, we never want to kind of prey upon people dealing with IRS problems. In fact, we just this is an opportunity to serve, but a workman is worth his wages. And it's a really important reality that your clients compensate you for the kind of work that you will need to undergo to resolve the issues that are coming. So those are the IRS caused issues. And then of course, there's the multiplicity of client caused issues, right? The 941s that are going crazy and the payroll taxes in arrears and all of the different reasons that people get into significant IRS debt, which then leads to significant fees for the practitioner to help resolve that issue, right? This is why we get paid the big bucks to do this stuff. So that's the landscape that we all sort of already know. But I also want you to know that this is not just news on tax Twitter, but what we're actually seeing is the data is bearing this out. So there was rumors of all these issues. You guys are probably seeing this with a certain segment of your clientele, but I want you to know from a macro marketing standpoint, we are seeing this show up in the data. And that's really the main thing that we're here to talk about today. Right. So Christian, why don't you just briefly share about that? And then I'm going to kick it to you, Dan, and introduce you quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Guys, Christian here. Again, there's more data, tactics, strategy to come. But generally speaking, Nate mentioned this at the top. He and I were talking last week, and I was just mentioning to him a number of ad campaigns, which we do more than ads. And we'll talk about more than ads, but tax resolution focused ad campaigns that were startlingly quick in their ability to generate predictable results. So I'll say it again. There's a startling speed that we normally don't we don't try and hype things. We try and be reasonable and we overperform constantly and get quick results for lots of different things that we serve. But there's
especially with ads. Ads is a quick results platform.
And organic is something we jam about a lot. If you haven't heard me talk about organic SEO, that's a big deal. But just to kind of frame, there's something in the water right now with all of our tax resolution ad campaigns that, to be honest, maybe I'll take this up later, 2 or 3 years ago wasn't the case. In fact, Google was slapping down tax resolution campaigns because they were misaligned into payday loans and debt sharks and
debt relief,
weird things. And we figured that out now. And now all of a sudden, I would say part of what prompted this webinar, probably a lot of what prompted this webinar is we're all looking at each other wow, these are pretty great results. So that's how we got here. That's what we're seeing. And we'll get into that more specifically as we go.
Yeah, it's notable that, we see good results. I mean, obviously this sounds kind of like we're crowing, but we see good results all the time with our clients, especially with ads and quick, but we're, this isn't about that. But Dan, I want to kick it to you now. So those of you who don't know Dan Henn, Dan is now the head of the Tax Resolution Academy. He actually took it over from Jason Bowman, who, went off to do other things. And Dan and Jason have been working together for years. Dan teaching a lot of the courses. Dan, a lot of you may or may not know that Dan is a longtime Tax Pro Marketer client as well. I think for 10 or 11 years you've been using our services, Dan,
Right.
in your tax practice. And an old friend, an adoptive father, a great man in a lot of ways. Don't judge him by the Star Trek background. He is even nerdier than that, especially when it comes to tax stuff. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Dan. But Dan, quickly, just like 30 seconds, your quick bio, relationship with us, et cetera. And then I want to hear what you have to say about what we're talking about.
Well, when I started my practice, this past tax season was my 29th. I've been on my own for now 12 years. This is actually, I think it's my 13th tax season on my own. And I met you. You were speaking at one of a conference that I went to that Slim Omar had put on. I think it was probably the first or second one that he did. And that's where I first initially saw you. I think it was probably within a couple of years later, I signed up to be a Tax Pro Marketer client, and I've remained so since then. And I've seen you obviously speak many times in terms of dealing with this. But I met Jason actually at another conference a few years later, learned about the tax resolution side, and really found that this was a good thing. And it's helped change my mindset, to be honest with you, what my worth is, what my value is. And ultimately, I do feel like I've become a superhero to my clients to help them change their way. Got involved with the tax. We founded what is known as the Tax Resolution Academy. I think it was early 2018, but obviously this had been going before then.
Okay,
but
so
go ahead.
Before I interrupted you, you're about to say a lot of really nice things and amazing things about me, but we'll just, read that into the record, attach it to the transcript later. But I brought you in for the minority of people that maybe don't yet have tax resolution in their practice. We're seeing in the chat that most people do. So maybe, if I don't want to throw you a curveball, Dan, but what are some mistakes that you see people make in offering tax resolution services? Maybe let's take that angle, if that's all right. Because since the vast majority of folks aren't, maybe put in the link for how they can, like a good resource if people are not offering tax resolution services. There's other ways that I'm going to talk about kind of when you're finished to, I think, still serve your clients well, even if you're not an EA or a CPA, or you haven't gotten that licensure yet and are in process, as I saw a couple of people were in that process. So maybe drop a link when you're done of how people could get connected to you to kind of get the training that you offer on, tax practitioners moving into resolution work. But why don't you share like some mistakes? I wanted to have Dan here, guys, because we don't normally talk about tax resolution. We have multiple niches that we serve within the tax and accounting world. We have traditional tax and accounting firms like CPA firms, seasonal tax businesses. We also work with advisory businesses that don't even touch tax. We deal with a lot of tax planning firms as well. And then tax resolution firms, we have a number of clients that's their main focus. But we don't end up talking about these different niches very often because it's not really necessarily our wheelhouse per se. So that's why I brought Dan in to just talk about this briefly. So to track you back to what I'm asking.
Yes. So
you might have already put it in the chat, your link, but what are mistakes?
I was just going to release it here in a second, but
okay.
But basically let me backstep a short bit here. Yes, we deal with at the Tax Resolution Academy what I call is really IRS representation. Okay, that's collections and
sure, of course.
Okay, right, so we do both sides of the house. Now we're specifically talking about the resolution, which is also known as the collection side. Now, you do need to be a licensed professional, an EA, CPA attorney in order to represent. So for those of you that are working toward that, or you have a staff person that's working toward that, do what you can to encourage them, support them, even if it's financially, to help get through that so that you can become licensed to represent these people. Now, biggest mistake kind of comes back to a comment that I made, that what I found in doing tax resolution, and it works with other aspects, tax planning, you talk about advisory services. When you start understanding and realizing what your true worth is, and you start charging the right dollars for your services, that's the biggest mistake that I see that people do. When I was, I'm getting out and going on the road again, speaking here and doing some boot camp. And I'm going to actually drop in the link here. If anybody's interested, we do have a 30-day free test drive that you can come and check out the Tax Resolution Academy. And I'll tell you more about that later. But when I was going out and speaking to people, and I'm asking them, hey, how much do you charge for, say, setting somebody up in a simple little payment plan? Now it takes your time. I mean, it's, you finish the return, client owes money, and your simple question is, hey, you're going to be able to pay for that. And there's time to time you're going to have somebody who can't and didn't. So you can help them set up in a payment plan. Now, typically, depending on how much they owe, like if they owe under less than $10,000, I charge now about $500 for that, which something that can literally take me an hour or less to do. But what I've typically found the biggest mistake is people who do this work is they include the resolution in their tax prep fees. This is a separate service. It is something separately that you should be charging for. It even goes for notice replies. I mean, people will do the same thing. That's extra money that you guys are losing and leaving on the table. When I first did this, the first situation that I had when Jason first taught me about this, I remember I called the IRS. I had 3 people to get into a payment plan. At that time, and this was about a decade ago, I was charging like $250 for each of these 1040s. And so I called the IRS and I charged them each $250 to set up their payment plan. Something that literally I waited on hold for 30 minutes to talk to somebody. And then in the next 30 minutes, I got all 3 of them set up in a payment plan. So literally it took me 10 minutes apiece. And even if you include that whole, the wait time, because the wait time I'm doing other things.
Is a lot worse now.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, at that time, if for that whole hour, I got $750. Now, if anybody here can say that they charge $750 for anything, then great. But, to say that I could get that, to be honest with you, I did it in 30 minutes. So I was really getting the equivalent of $1,500 an hour. When I found that realization that I'm helping these people, they're wanting me to do something that they don't want to do because so many people are fearful, scared, angry with the IRS, and they shouldn't be representing themselves. So that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see. And then the next one is not bouncing ideas off of other people. Now, some people are part of other groups where they're, some other associations where they can post questions out to other people. But that's what our academy does, is we help and support everybody from the junior basic experienced person or just getting into it to the people who are more experienced, because we haven't experienced it all. So there are questions and things that we're going to need help with. And we do help with some of the, some of the marketing and practice management type stuff. And that's where a lot of times we'll get you guys involved with your particular expertise. So to answer that, that's the, biggest thing that I find.
Now, I mean, just for the sake of like time, and there's some really good questions coming through. Keep them coming, everybody, because this is why Dan is here. And Dan, I want you to address some of this stuff verbally. But if we could, maybe just like everybody keep going with your questions that you might have for Dan. We've got a very experienced teacher and practitioner here available to you to address your questions. It could be sort of networking. So keep it coming in the Q&A in particular. But Dan, maybe you could speak a little bit to this, because I do also know that like those of you who are not already currently doing this, again, it seems like a minority. One of the things that we're seeing in the data, because there's so much froth, Natalia, I am going to talk about that in just a sec, okay? Because there's so much activity and just chaos right now, that you can actually use this this alert state, this chaos, as a lead generation for all of your like traditional compliance work, right? This can be like, people might not realize that what they're actually asking, what they really need is tax return preparation, and what they really need is various other kinds of compliance work, though they might respond to advertising related to IRS problems, right? And so for us in the industry, we've got real clarity about the difference between those two kinds of services. But from the eyes of the end user, the client, a lot of them don't necessarily even know like that there's this other kind of service, get out of IRS debt now ads, to the side. People don't necessarily distinguish between the two. I remember when I came into the industry 20 years ago, I didn't really understand that distinction right away. Sort of thought all of them were just accountants, right? So there's a lot of activity related to IRS issues now. And so there's 2 things I'd say about that. So traditional CPA firms that maybe have both of these in their service offerings, don't like turn away maybe what could be great tax planning and great compliance work leads if they come through the tax resolution. So they might not be like the $20,000 case that you can turn around or whatever it might be, for a big tax resolution case, whatever your fees might be. But it could be an ongoing relationship that is $1,000 a year or $500 to $1,500 a month of like real services that you can provide that aren't related to tax problem resolution, et cetera. So there's that. Then, of course, if you're not already an EA or a CPA, you can develop a referral relationship. If you have smart advertising, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, if you have smart advertising and maybe there's a segment of leads that you don't want to deal with, or maybe there's a segment of leads that you aren't licensed to deal with, develop a referral swap relationship with another EA. And there's lots of ways to find good people. Hopefully, you know those people, but if not, I'm sure Dan could connect you with some of his members or people on this webinar, that are in our world. We actually have some clients that we refer people to because we get leads all the time. They're like here in Kansas City, people think that I run a tax agent, they're a tax company. So I'm referring people to Kansas City tax pros all the time. We have a few clients in the Kansas City area. Anyway, so you can have that referral relationship. But the other thing is this might be an awesome time to start or acquire a resolution practice. I don't know that there's a lot of resolution oriented practices for sale right now because people probably realize they're sitting on what's going to be a 5-year gold mine, but there might be out there. But especially this is, do a joint venture or start a wing of your practice. I urge you in that. So if you don't have your EA or CPA, those are a couple ways to skin the cat to serve your clients well in this. Any other quick thoughts on that, Dan, before we go into the advertising stuff that we're seeing?
Well, no, just the 3 bullets you have up there, that's one of the big ones that we say is referral relationships. Tell everybody that you do this type of work. You can help people. I mean, my quick elevator is hey, I help people who haven't filed a return in 1 or more years. They owe the IRS some sum of money and don't know how to deal with it. And I help them. Let everybody know. Talk with other professionals, talk with bookkeepers, talk with bankruptcy attorneys, people who are going to see that same type of client.
That's good. All right, Christian, why don't you take over the screen sharing and start it from here? And let's talk some of this data. Before we're going to talk over the data while Christian's getting set up, we are going to do like a quick overview of advertising, if that's all right. Some of you maybe have heard some of this kind of thing before, but we do want to make sure you understand the context for what we're sharing, because this isn't search engine optimization data. This isn't cold emailing, which has its place, but I tend to turn my nose up at for a variety of reasons. This is Google pay-per-click. What's really interesting is years ago, we've heard prominent voices. Christian and I were talking about this earlier. Actually, Christian, we're kind of stealing his thunder in saying this. Sorry, Christian. But years ago, we've heard, and it might still be the case, that some significant voices, not Dan or Jason, were saying, oh, you can never get tax resolution leads on, pay-per-click advertising. We're here to tell you different. So, Christian.
Yeah, no, that's all helpful, Nate. So guys, what we're going to talk about now, there's been a few questions asking about this, and this is probably, again, why a lot of you are here, or at least some of you, is to hear like, okay, what's working? And so when we talk about lead generation, the longer, bigger conversation is this is not the only way to get clients. This is one way. And it's the one that we want to focus on today, which is how do you do Google ads, Google pay-per-click ads in particular well. And so that's, if you do a Google search for something that produces localized results, which this space does, you'll see a frame like this. And I just want to point out that blue section I've scribbled out with my wonderful graphic design skills is organic and should not be neglected. And when we look at the ads data is going to show you like maybe, at best, like a 10% click-through rate, the lead conversion rate will be X. Organic is another channel that produces clicks and engagement and is viable. And the goal of your online marketing should be to rank in all of these places. But with that preamble, we're going to talk about how to do ads well. And so we want to be a little bit like, hey, just serve you guys, tell you what we're doing. If you want to talk about how we may be able to do that for you, existing client or otherwise, taxproleads.com is going to be on the slides. We'll put it in the chat. But if you want to hack it yourself, or at least if you have someone that's doing it for you, you want to get them this info, I want to get a little bit like educational. And there is, Nate, I bet we have our ads webinar somewhere on our website. I don't know if we'll talk about that later. Maybe we'll post that in an email, because I do this presentation in other environments and it's a longer presentation. So I'm not going to go through every bullet point, just time constraints. And we want to make time for question and answer with Dan, Nate, and myself with the time we have. But A lot of the reason why I have heard, why Nate has heard, maybe Dan's heard this too, if you're going to do tax resolution, you need to get away from ads, is because there's a lot of money being pumped into this platform. And that's like the one thing for tax resolution that obviously probably everyone's aware of. The national, brands that are just driving the cost up because Google pay-per-click ads is an auction. It's a bit of supply and demand. And when the ads that come from these larger entities just start flooding the market, it drives the cost up. It drives up the cost for you guys. And that can make ads unviable, or so you may think. And so what I want to say to you first is that's still true. There's still national campaigns that are driving the cost of ads up in this space. The cost of a tax resolution lead from an ad campaign is generally going to be higher than other disciplines like tax prep, tax planning, generally. But what we're finding is when you do the basics well, and we'll talk about the basics, and obviously there's more technical secret sauce that we won't have time for today, you can get results. But failing to understand generally how Google Ads works is what this slide talks about. And I now want to talk about the things you need to do. So this is kind of 101 on ads. Again, there's a longer educational presentation we'll do on this, or if you want to just talk about these things, go to Tax Pro Leads. Let's keep the conversation going. But an ad campaign that's built well is going to have these things in place. You're going to have ad groups. You're going to dial in your keywords. You're going to have a well-built landing page, a clear call to action and conversion mechanism, clear reporting. Someone's going to be actively managing that campaign. And we should have added this to the slide because this is something Nate will talk about if we have time. You're going to want to follow up with those leads. And that's the thing behind the thing. Clicks and website traffic and ads clicks are wonderful. But if you don't follow up with your leads, you're, leaving a giant crack in the bottom of the ship. It's just going to
and
water.
Following up is more than just like responding to their initial inquiry, by the way. You got to build a system for that. But, let's rip through this stuff fast, Christian, because there's so many. Yeah. So share some of this data. Shut up, Nate, but you know what you're doing. But
totally. So here's one data set of an ad group. And so you can see two ad groups here. One is for back taxes. One is for tax resolution. And the point of this is, even in tax resolution, as you all probably know, there's multiple ways to come at it. It's not necessarily all one bucket. And knowing what you're trying to target and the nuance and the difference of it is going to influence your content, your keywords, your structure. And the way you do well with ads is getting nuanced. If you have a generalized tax resolution campaign on Google, you are doomed to spend money on keywords that you don't actually want clicks from. And a pay-per-click ad model has variable cost per click. So you've got to start with segmenting who is it you're trying to reach. Build a unique ad group for that group. And then that ad campaign is going to have a different follow-up process, a different landing page, and different keywords. And so what I've included here is just one keyword. Let me move. I've got my video covering the bottom slide. There we go. I've got this one keyword highlighted, and I just want to mention the nuance of keywords on Google Ads. So you can see on that red line I've highlighted, this is a keyword for tax debt resolution, and it's exact match. And then you can see, and this is only like 13 days, June 10th to the 23rd. So up to yesterday, you can see the data coming in. A 20%.
And you've whited out some of the other keywords because hashtag secret sauce.
But not necessarily just to keep things focused, because there was too much, it felt messy. But I also wanted to highlight the main thing on this slide is look at the second column, exact match, phrase match, and there's also broad match. And so this is where a lot of you, if you've ever done ads before, have lost your shirt. Broad match is a useful tool very temporarily, if at all. Broad match would be, hey, Google, tax debt resolution, you pick the keywords that make sense. I'm going to trust your algorithm. Phrase match is going to be, hey, include anyone that has a keyword that they type that has tax debt resolution in it, but maybe there's more words in that search. Does that make sense, right? So it's a part of the keyword search, but maybe there's more words in that actual search that the user did. Now, exact match is I only want clicks from this keyword, period. That really tight. And so getting from broad to some phrases to more exact matches is how and I think this is general. If you know Google Ads, I'm not telling you anything new, but this is a part of the stuff you've got to do to make this campaign work. We've got different ad groups, and in those ad groups, I'm looking at these different keywords with this type of match type.
Yeah, and that's actually to kind of open the kimono a little bit, that's sort of our process. You start broad and then you start looking at the data and you narrow and pick winners and winners and winners along the way from a keyword and targeting standpoint. And that's why you need active management to be paying attention on a regular basis, hopefully daily, looking at this data to make sure that you're not bidding on the wrong keywords, et cetera. So what we're sharing, just to frame this for everybody, is the backside of Google. As Christian has said, this is pay-per-click. Again, it's a little ninja. I did want you guys to know, look, obviously we handle this for you, and we're glad to kind of like talk about this with you. You can go to taxproleads.com and get on our calendar to have a conversation about that. Or if you're an existing client already, just shoot Christian an email and he'll share his email address in a minute. But if you are not doing this with us, and it's fine if you don't, maybe share this recording with your provider.
Yeah.
And we'd be glad to be a resource to your provider. I mean, we're fine with helping other people. That's fine. I don't have a fiefdom that I'm trying to protect. We'd be glad to help your person, especially if it's like somebody on your team. We'd be glad to be a resource. Anyway, shut up, Nate. Go on.
No, that's good. That's good, Nate. And we'll go quick through this data. It's a menu. It is like the back end, but we want to teach to a degree. And then we also, like Nate said, we just want to do this for you that it makes sense to do it for. But this is stuff that if you don't use us is really helpful to have in mind so that you don't lose your shirt. But here's the other side of keywords real quick. You can have positive keywords you rank for. You can have negative keywords you tell Google I don't want to rank for. And this is, again, into the weeds. And this is probably not a good example of a negative keyword for the tax resolution space, although maybe. I don't want my ad to show up when in the phrase that someone searched for, the word free shows up. If someone says free tax debt resolution services, Google, don't show my ad. That's a part of the nuance of Google Ads is you can say, I want to show up for this. I don't want to show up for that. And that's, again, where a lot of people stop is they will not do the homework to figure out how are people searching for me that actually reveals these are people I want to exclude. Because every time you get a click, you get dinged. It's a pay-per-click model. And so you want to optimize your clicks, and negative keyword is one way you do it. Here's some examples of ads that we've run. This is how it actually shows up. You can see a tax resolution one there in the upper left-hand corner. Now let's talk about landing pages real fast. This is where, again, I see a lot of people that don't follow this general outline that we're going through lose a lot of money. Now, landing pages are not novel, but what you do with the landing page where you direct traffic has a lot to do with your success. Now, we're past the click. We've got the keywords. Someone is on the page. What's the next step? And this is where follow-up comes into play, because if you're not capturing someone's information and making it clear that they're in the right place through the questions that you're asking, that's a gap. And you're seeing here pages that are actually for like business services, individual services, but we hyper focus our landing pages for tax resolution people around, do you owe the IRS money? How much? How many years? Do you own a business? Do you have in-house, tax or accounting help? Blah, blah, blah. All of that pre-qualifies people. And that's important because there are a lot of clicks around tax resolution that are not necessarily great leads. And that's a part of the nuance of having a questionnaire to pre-qualify and screen people that once it's in place, you can tweak. We can tweak and say, has to be a minimum amount, has to be this. Don't kick them through to my calendar unless they have these types of parameters. Well, that might not be the best thing to do to weed people out en masse at the beginning, but as you get data, there are levers you can pull to make changes in terms of who gets through the funnel. And so part of it is keywords, but then people will slip through and some of them are great leads and some of them aren't. And this is where digital marketing is really powerful. An automated system that we think about ahead of time and we put into place to make your life easy. Your landing page should clearly help the person who's clicked know I'm in the right place. This person's here to help. Here's my problem. And now we've screened them. You've got the info and we're following up. We're past the campaign. But this is something that, again, Nate will pick up if we have time and email. Don't neglect. And on that landing page, real quick, less is more. Write good content in terms of telling them what you want them to do. If you have an offer for some service, tax resolution or otherwise, it's always good to reference that in the ad and the landing page. But content matters. Generally, I would not recommend that you drive this ad traffic to your main web page. Generally, there's some exceptions. Generally, that's not the right move. Generally, you want to put them in a fixed environment where they have one decision to make. If that's a call, and if you're staffed up to take live calls and you want to do that, go for it. We can make that happen. if you, like most people, want to screen those leads, get the data, and then make a decision, that's probably a better way to go for a firm that doesn't have 24/7 phone support or a great inbound sales process. You can do that with tax resolution is what we're seeing. And then here again, this is a snippet of the data I'll give you. This is real data for a client that we had 29 form fills for through this period. And again, you wake up on a Tuesday and you've got these two, and again, there's more data we've excluded, of course, like name, email, phone number. You've got someone that's saying, I owe $100,000 in back taxes in your inbox.
Well, this is actually this is old data.
This is last year.
A slide from our master presentation. So get to, this is the new stuff.
This is new stuff. And this is all recent. And you can see the timestamps. This is a part of what prompted this conversation between Nate and I is, are all of these leads going to be slam dunks? Probably not. But there's a level of frequency and activity, and also enough, like Nate, you're probably going to say it, like these could be amazing leads. They look on paper like a lot of these leads would be really juicy, right? And good. But the frequency and the level of engagement, once we get the campaign dialed in, we've got the landing page set up, we're getting questions filled out from real people saying, I need help. Can you step in? This is for one guy in the span of like under a month.
This is one.
Yep. Nate, I think we lost you.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Kind of.
Nate, you froze there for just a half second.
Oh, okay. Am I back?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, sorry. This is one client, and we're seeing this across multiple clients. And what you're seeing here is just part of the genesis of this conversation, but there's others too. And I'm telling you, there is so much froth, and not just froth, but meat and froth right now related to these keywords that unless you are advertising on Google right now, you're really missing out. Unless you've got a really good SEO site where you're going to get this traffic from like organically, because only like 20% of the clicks on the Google results page go to the ads. The most recent data, I think it's about 20%. But so the other 80% of the clicks go to organic rankings, which that takes like 3 to 6 months, depending on kind of like your market area. Tony had a really good question that again, we'll address some of these questions related to advertising and resolution things, at the end here. Why don't you kind of get through your thing so we can have time at the end of this. I mean, there's one of my team members was just telling me that we had a 15% conversion rate on one of these. This is unheard of. Industry standard, so that's 12% there.
That's the click-through rate, Nate, and then the actual bottom of funnel conversion rate out of that is the 18.8%.
That's wild. Industry standard is like 2%.
Exactly. It's crazy. And you can scale this up. Like you can increase your budget to get more clicks. A lot of our people are telling us 5 to 10 good pre-qualified leads a month is going to keep them super busy. But the point of this is once you have a good campaign dialed in, you can throttle up the clicks by just increasing the budget, but you want the campaign dialed in first. You want the process dialed in first. Once the process is dialed in, maybe at a lower budget amount on a monthly basis, then if you have capacity, crank it. But again, this is just for like a month. This is just a couple of weeks and you're getting 48 clicks as a 12% click-through rate. That's really high. 1% would be the benchmark, a 1% click-through rate. And then like Nate said, the bottom of funnel conversion would usually be like 2, 3. If you're getting 5% of a conversion rate at the bottom of those leads, that's usually great. But what we're finding is commonly we're above 10 or somewhere in that ballpark with these 3 little campaigns. These are all 3 unique campaigns. Ironically, all had 9 leads in the time period I selected. You can see this one's only been up for about 13 days. This one's been up this whole last month, as well as this one. But this is just a couple, and there is more real results for our clients. But the point of this slide was, if you can't track what's happening from an ads perspective, don't do ads. Only do ads when you can effectively track what is working and why, so that you can make better decisions. And so part of what we want to say is, from an ads perspective, clear reporting, call tracking, all of that really helps. We track all of our calls for ads so that we can do some quality control. We can do some sales coaching when needed. Don't think about doing ads unless you have conversion tracking in place. This is for you guys to have for yourself. Talk to us about, talk to your other advertising provider. There's a lot of slides I'm going to go real quick through here that I'm just going to say, again, if you want to DIY this, here's a great list to look through that kind of hits on a lot of the things we've talked about. Here's a great list of things specifically to ask to your provider. And so again, the slides, Nate, we'll have them available to download, right?
Yeah, I just downloaded them and I'm waiting for the Dropbox
Perfect.
to upload so I can get it.
Now here's what I'd also say. Google Ads, PPC in particular, is not the only way to advertise. We typically produce the best results on Google PPC for our clients. But one thing that, Nate, we might be trying, we've done TikTok ads for CPA, like business services, I should say, business-oriented ads. We might be trying some tax resolution TikTok ads. That's a whole can of worms. I just want to mention Facebook has been a interesting platform. Generally speaking, we're focusing on PPC from a Google standpoint because it's the most viable, fastest way to get results. But there are other channels you can advertise on. And Nate has mentioned wisely, you can also get results from organic. It just takes longer. But honestly, like TikTok ads, guys, is something I don't want you to ignore, even if it's not around tax resolution. TikTok is not for, hey, there's Jim, who we ran TikTok ads for. There he is. He got a client from TikTok ads run by Tax Pro Marketer, and he was a part of our test on TikTok ads. And again, like, I wouldn't hold up TikTok ads as like the killer to Google.
No, what we're really seeing is mostly Google related.
Yes.
TikTok ads is like very much beta. We're going to start talking about that more, especially as it relates to regular business accounting, because I think there's a real opportunity there from an advisory standpoint and from a just small business accounting standpoint. So you can keep the con, Christian. I don't need to take over, but because I'm going to rip through this part.
Please.
No, it's true, Jim. There is no reason that you can't get tax relief clients from TikTok. If you are interested in having us test that with you, shoot Christian an email. I'm assigning everyone to email Christian. It's not a very busy time for him, but
it's fine. It's fine.
There's his email address. And I also put the slides in the chat as well, and I'll send it in a follow-up email in addition with the recording of this. But so the main takeaway from this, and then I want to clear it out for Q&A, because I'd like to address John King's question to everybody, Christian as well. And you guys, I think, can everybody see the answered questions? I think they can, because we've typed out some answers. I'm just not sure if I see as an admin more than everybody else does, because I haven't been on one of these webinars in a while as a participant, but I think they can. But the main takeaway here is that the response to these keywords is spiking. And it is really important that you hitch your wagon to this kind of rocket ship. And so again, if you're an existing client, go to your email and type Christian an email. And if you want to explore this, adding ads or this keyword mix, this campaign to what we're doing for you, shoot him an email now. If you are not an existing client, we want to have a conversation with you before we would start getting this going. We want to make sure it's the right fit, and we want to kind of get your goals and all that stuff and have more of a consultative call with you. Right. And it may turn out that, you shouldn't be a client of ours, and that's fine. And that might be your choice, and it might be our choice, whatever. But that's at taxproleads.com. Maybe Christian, you can put that in the chat as well. Real quickly, Christian alluded to this. We sort of talked about it already. You'll notice this is a little screenshot of a larger graphic that we call our digital dominance methodology, which is a more holistic, a more holistic look at online marketing in general. Because here's the deal about how our philosophy at Tax Pro Marketer, if you don't know this already, we're not interested in just these flash in the pan things and riding the next wave. So this is why it's an unusual thing that we're talking about this on a webinar like this. Our interest is in building online properties on behalf of our clients that last, like real estate investing, rather than sales shark stuff, right? That's how we see online marketing is real estate, building your real estate empire. And online, there are multiple places where you need to have real estate handled. Your house, this is the first time I've ever used this analogy, and I like it, Christian. But your house, which is your website, and then your rental properties, right? So your rental properties are like your Google business profile. You don't control these things as much. You've got tenants that are on there also. I'm going to kill this analogy if I keep going with it, but you understand. There's multiple properties that you have to be managing, not just these quick flash in the pan, turn and flip opportunities. I'd rather get you into a hodl situation with 10 different properties so that you're set for life. And so to connect the dots on the analogy, for your online marketing, you've got to have all these things in place for a long-lasting algorithmic change proof, foundation for your marketing. Otherwise, you're just chasing after shiny objects. We're not about that at Tax Pro Marketer. One of the things that we do on behalf of our clients is setting up the intake sequences and the ongoing email nurture, which is so critical for this, because a lot of these folks are emotional and freaked, and they may not be ready to sign on the dotted line right away for these kinds of cases. And that's why you need to actually be nurturing these leads on a regular basis, because they will come back maybe when they're in a different emotional state and they realize, oh, I tried this on my own. I tried calling the IRS and I was on hold for 2 days, whatever. And they'll come back to you and, have you do your magic at the fee that you wanted, right? That only happens if you stay in touch with them on a nurturing basis. And that's what I want to talk about is lead follow-up. And so the trick with follow-up is, first of all, having multiple ways that people can scratch their itch, especially on your main website, but then having an intake sequence that I alluded to. And the purpose of that intake, these are just different follow-up, this is actually for a multi-service tax business that's like their main homepage, but there's others that are like the landing pages that Christian spoke to are also available. We can help you. Like here's a client that this is a landing page. You'll notice, no, this is actually on his website. You'll notice right away, it goes right to this screening process, which is really an important part of lead generating, because leads are not leads, right? People, marketing folks might say, oh, I got to get you 100 leads, but if they're cruddy leads, so we want to screen them a little bit, and it's different options that people can connect to you. Okay, so that's the main point. Okay, and then we can pre-qualify them based on their responses to the question. We can tweak that, like John. We can tweak some of those questions. We can disqualify people automatically if they don't answer certain questions right. But I would refer you back to what I said at the beginning, that they might actually be good leads for compliance work. It just sort of depends on your goals in that moment. Okay, so there's the kind of data that you might get on form fills, but then have this intake sequence, which is like a preset 3 to 7 email sequence that kind of indoctrinates the lead and gives them a flavor of who you are. It's conversational, that you can set up in advance. There's so many different softwares that will do this for you. It doesn't matter which, almost. And then after that, you want to nurture them. Go after engagements. I'm not running the slideshow like I normally do. So it's all right. I kind of like this feeling. Go after engagement, which means you actually want replies back in the emails. And so you want to put little prompts to get people to reply back to the emails. And lest you think that you're going to get flooded with replies, that's actually not the case. Still a small minority of people will actually reply to what they can tell is like a marketing email. Hopefully your emails don't feel like marketing emails. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, going after engagement is important. All right. So yeah, story, get through that. I think we're done with kind of the main stuff that we had planned. Again, I want to point you guys, go to taxproleads.com, answer our few quick questions, but we won't disqualify you. You'll get a full online marketing audit if you go through those questions and answer them. Get on Christian or Ben, who's actually our director of advertising, his calendar. He's intimately involved with this stuff, or Becca, who handles a lot of this stuff, because Christian may or may not be able to take these calls if his wife has a baby and he's, arming people with explosives, which he's going to be doing over the next 2 weeks. He's an arms dealer on the side. All right, so enough from us. Let's handle your questions. Christian, I want to first handle John King and Tony's questions verbally.
Yep. So I've got Tony's here. Tony and everyone, really, ads gives you flexibility beyond your local area. And the inverse of that is organic is more focused on local. Organic results will be more localized. Google shows results for people searching for you based around where they're actually searching from, like their IP address. So if you're in Phoenix looking for tax resolution help, you're going to see Phoenix people unless someone is advertising into that area. What was that, Nate?
I was just calling out Axel, who's in Phoenix. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I just pulled that out of a hat. No reason for Phoenix, but hey, Axel, good to see you. Thanks for the barbecue sauce a few years ago, by the way. I still talk about that from time to time. Axel makes his own barbecue sauce, which is fun. But generally, if you're in a rural context and your local market is not full of great leads, which I would maybe challenge, there's still reason to say, well, ads is going to help you find people that are not in your direct market, because we're not geographically bound with ads. We don't have to be. But generally, if you're in a large market or a mid-tier market or even a small market, doing ads locally is sometimes wise. Again, it depends, but because if I have you ranking organically in the map section, that blue little map I kind of had scratched out on that earlier slide, if you remember, that's an organic place. And then there's a spot beneath that that's also organic beneath the map. And then if I have the ad and you're in 3 places, well, now you are dominating the search engine result page. It's called the SERP, S-E-R-P, search engine result page. That's kind of the goal. So there's reasons to do ads locally, especially when you're doing well organically, but there's also reasons to do ads elsewhere. And this is not tax resolution, but like, this is a telling example. We had a client in rural Tennessee who was doing expat tax work in Europe. And so we ran ad campaigns in Brussels, in London, and we also targeted Dubai. And she's in rural Tennessee. I mean, like nowhere. And that's just again, a stark example of what ads can do. Ads can help you reach into markets you're not in, but it is not necessarily a national strategy. If you wanted to do national ads, you would need to be spending high.
So by national ads, you mean like ads that hit everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're not focused geographically. One of the ways that we get good results is we pick local areas that would be a good demographic, reach for. Yeah.
But I hear people say national is my goal because you're an EA and I get it, but Google doesn't work that way. And then I think you're right. We need to move on, but that generally.
Yeah, Dan, I'd like you to address Andy's questions related to the online stuff. You did it in the written thing, but so there's new tools. And guys, let me just also, if you're not on Andy Fry's list as well, shout out to Andy. ProntoTaxSchool.com is an awesome resource, especially if you,
right.
I know that Dan is got a few of his clients on this call as well. I think that's I just put it in there too, Christian.
Okay.
Mine is clickable.
Yeah. Whoops. Rookie mistake.
Anyway, so Andy is also a great industry leader, another existing tax marketer client here. Thank you for joining us, Andy. Brought up a great question. So Dan, how would you respond to that?
Right. Well, I'll second your sentiments on Andy. I've had some good conversations with him too, and we work with him offering their stuff to our members because they teach different classes. But Andy's question is about the IRS is putting a lot more online services, and he specifically asked the 2848 online tax pro accounts, and they're doing a lot more electronically, and that's great. But I think at the end of the day, we still have a lot of people, because even tax practitioners are fearful of the IRS, and just think about that. Most taxpayers are out there that are like that. And I haven't looked at the latest data, but there's typically 13 to 14 million people who have some kind of collections issue. And that doesn't even count, they're getting CP 2000 notices and other exam related type issues. But, there's going to be some people who are the do-it-yourselfers or they're trying to save a buck or they're technology savvy, but there's so many people that aren't that way. They don't know how to work this stuff, and they're still going to want to hire
and
you
he also
using your services.
Sorry to interrupt, Dan. Forgive me.
Go ahead.
But just so you know, Dan gave me explicit permission to interrupt him when we talked earlier today.
He did.
Andy brought up another really good point that I didn't even allude to that I should have at the beginning of this webinar, that the 1099K things that are going to, or not the 1099K, that's the name of it, right?
Right.
It's going to, through Venmo and PayPal and Cash App, that they are going to be sending to the side hustlers out there. And there's a bunch of people in 2023 that are going to start getting these K1 1099 things, and not K1s, but 1099 things that never have gotten them before. And they're going to be on the hook for taxes that they've never paid because they're not diligent about for whatever reason they haven't paid. Maybe they didn't know, maybe they were trying to squeeze it under the rug, but regardless, they're going to be in hot water come 2023. This is a big deal, and every tax practitioner should know about this. In fact, Andy wrote about it to his list, I think Monday, or that I saw, or maybe last week, I don't know. This is a big deal. So there's going to be a whole different population of people that are going to have IRS problems, come.
Yeah.
like
and Nate, that
February.
goes both ways, because like you said, there's going to be people who are going to get income that they probably hadn't been reporting it before, so they're going to get whacked. But you're going to get people who legitimately shouldn't have probably gotten it, but
Mhm.
because of the rules. I mean, I've had people,
Right.
I had one guy where he gave his number to another guy because he couldn't, PayPal wouldn't let him set up an account. So he used his social, and it was this other guy's income, and he reported it. But he didn't, this other guy that got the 1099 didn't report it. And so he got a notice. So you're going to get a lot of
Yuck.
people who are having that type of situation, or you got the GoFundMe where they're trying to raise money for some family friend
Right.
or something. So
Mm.
there's going to be a lot of people that it's not income, and it's just now you got to report it and document it. So there's always going to be plenty of work out there, and sometimes they're going to cross lines. Like we had one of our members today that she got a client who the IRS didn't get the amended return because they didn't originally report their house sale, but the house sale got reported on 1099-S. They didn't include it on the original return, but now the IRS is showing that they owe $190,000 that shouldn't exist. So now it's a matter of getting the IRS to realize that this amended return should be posted, and dealing with that. That takes time, that takes your expertise, and you should be paid for that.
Yeah, and you might have a different fee structure for something like that versus like legitimate IRS debt, where like a legitimate IRS debt situation where you're actually like, whether it's an OIC or some other methodology that you're using, like
Right.
to actually save them dollars at a discount. That I would say that's a different kind of engagement personally, but I don't
Right.
run a resolution practice. So
now I want to add something. In the numbers that Christian showed before on the statistics with that guy before, I think they had 9 leads and they spent about $500 on those leads in terms of the
Right.
click side. And so there's 2 things I want to say. That's great. I mean, you convert one of those, you could easily get your money back and then some. So you've got that thing, and you also pointed out about not talking about free, not excluding the free stuff, because not only does it cost you money in the clicks, but keep in mind those free people call you, and then you take
Right.
time to hear their situations, and then find out, hey, I'm going to have to charge you. This is what my base fee is. Now, occasionally a good tax practitioner will take a good pro bono or reduced fee case, and as long as you're choosing to do it and not being told to voluntold to do it is fine. But it does take your time. So that's why using you guys, and I've used you guys for various different services over the years, and using your expertise, just like we have the expertise in the tax side, in the resolution side. It's very important to use the expertise and use that as a sales technique. It's what you don't know is what you don't know is you don't know. And that's the stuff that's going to hurt these people for trying to do it themselves.
That's good.
Indeed.
That's a good thing to highlight. Hey, John King, you talked about running an ad campaign that is getting qualified as debt services, which is something I mentioned we ran into a few years ago. Every campaign I've shown you today is recent, is active, is live. Yes, you can run an ad campaign for this stuff, but it is not without the nuance of understanding the history that Google has had with this space in particular, and knowing, honestly, guys, like Google's algorithm is scary. It's somewhat scary. You could go to like just the level of detail they can get, but like if your landing page has certain phrases or keywords, you can trigger this debt services red alert that gets your campaign shut off. And there's things in your ad group and in your content and in your everything that if you don't walk this line and know how to do it, you will get your ad shut off. So you can try, but I would recommend, just especially right now in the space, it one works. 2, there's a lot of people scared off because they've dealt with the debt services penalty, if you will, and they don't want to try again. And I am telling you right now, all of these campaigns are live and are targeting tax resolution, but you have to be careful with language up and down this vertical funnel, up and down. And so, yes, it is totally possible to make that happen, because I am showing you campaigns, as you obviously are probably seeing.
Christian, what are some things that people do to trigger that? And what are we doing to avoid that? Is that too long of a answer to that question?
Well, I kind of just mentioned it. I'll just highlight what I said again. Like, it is the language you use in the.
But which are the languages? What are the keywords that are?
Anything related to debt, which gets more exhaustive than you'd think. And so that's, honestly, I'm speaking on behalf of Ben, our ads director, who dealt with this nightmare a few years ago, and we figured it out. And now we get campaigns up and live with no issue.
Because that was a new ruling a couple years ago. It's not like, like, so this was a new algorithm change that like squashed like a bunch of campaigns
Yes.
from our clients and everybody.
Yep.
And so I think that's why the word's out on the street, don't use Google ads. Well, we're here to tell you things are different now.
That's the whole point of today is it works. It's viable. I would tell Tony this, Tony, great question. Our advertising minimum, just like if you're a client of ours, there's a marketing component, there's an advertising component. Those are different things. Some of our clients don't advertise, some of them do, but those are separate items. Our minimum is 1,000 for ads a month. Our tax resolution crowd is typically around $2,000 a month. So if you're trying to forecast out advertising on its own, excluded from marketing, website, email, which is
just ad spend.
That's
2,000. Yeah.
Ad spend. It also includes our management fee, everything inclusive in that 2,000. It works out to basically, that's the number of the campaigns that I've shown you today. That's what they're spending. They're spending that amount and we're managing and doing it for them. I will build it for you at 1,000. But what I've shown you today is campaigns that are at 2,000, excluding one. One was at 1,000, but that's because they started at 1,000. We got it dialed in. And a part of what we can do for you guys is it's not a template. It's not a clone, but we have these campaigns that we can pull from that are working and give to you.
Oh yeah, our learnings, it's just constantly
shortcut it for you.
We're constantly integrating what we're seeing across the marketplace into these keyword formulas, et cetera.
Exactly. So, I hope that's helpful. And again, if you want to get details, brass tacks, let's do it. Email me, taxforleads.com.
Byron, I mean, we don't promise like specific amounts of leads, but like, what's Bradley's number, Christian?
He's
like
13 days in, and he's had 13 form fills.
Yeah. And a form fill is not even just the only kind of lead. So again, like results not typical, FTC, disclaimer, blah, 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 blah. I hate it when people I don't like pay per lead model as a marketing. Obviously we do it differently here. I feel like that just incentivizes the lead scourer to get you crappy leads. I think that's a good range, 8 to 20 or so, but more now,
And the consistency of our campaigns is kind of what we're bringing to the table today is consistently in lots of markets, new clients, old clients, whatever, we're seeing this changing of the wind where we've had great tax res campaigns for a while, but post this tax season, post April, something has shifted. Something's shifted. Maybe it's algorithmically, maybe it's just the level of money that's being invested. Maybe it's just, dear God,
probably the expiration of the PPP and the EIDL and the things that are, yeah.
Let me add something else in here, and this is why I say this is the time, there are very few times where it totally makes sense to do this. I mean, it always should be, having tax resolution as part of your practice is a good thing. But if you read the tea leaves and the writing on the wall, that the way our economy is going, I can't see how we can't either get into some minor recession to even potentially, an 07 to 10 recession that we had back then. But you're going to have a lot of people, there's people getting laid off from these Bitcoin companies and other companies already that are not hiring. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to have the need for the services. They have to make a choice. Put food on the table, roof over their head, gas in the tank, or pay their taxes. And you know what people are going to choose. And a year or 2 years from now, you're going to get these people who need help. They don't know what to do. Because I always say, facetiously, because the best thing to do is when you owe the IRS is to not file your tax return. And then the next best thing is that not only you do it for 1 year, but you do it for multiple years. And so there are a lot of people out there that have that. And this economic situation is going to cause a lot of turmoil, and it's going to cause a lot of business. And it's a great joy, to be honest with you, to help these people deal with the IRS and get through that. But Christian, I do have another question here. Tony did bring up another question where he said, if your system works well, and if you're getting roughly 8 to 20 leads, I mean, eight leads a month is very good. You're getting 20, now you're doing super. And if you've got a lot of people who are small practice, solo guys, that's probably going to be more than what they can handle and running a regular practice.
Yes.
So he talks about, what about shutting it down and then restarting it? But what are your comments on that?
Oh yeah, totally. So with ads, you can throttle the campaign in terms of pausing it. We have done that before for people. Growth brings its own challenges. I bet Nate has spoken on that dozens of times, but that's kind of the pain point we want to put you in as a business owner. I want to put you in the pain point of, it's a problem, but it's a good problem. How do you scale sustainably so that you're not the linchpin? And hiring's hard right now. and it's not easy. And you can't be the one, the one gun available to deal with this if you're growing, but you also don't have to work with everyone that reaches out to you. And what we're finding a lot of people do is create a wait list of inbound leads that you can't handle right now. And we're finding commonly people are happy to do that because one, you showed up on Google, you had good reviews, you had a good site, you had good ads, you look like the most trustworthy person. They want someone they can trust. So when we do our job and our clients get flooded, and we've got a few right now that are still getting unburied from that wait list, but you can keep them on the hook and come back to them without feeling the pressure to stop everything and work with these new people. But it also will stress test systems, automation, human resources. And that's a good thing to say, hey, like, what do you want your firm to look like? Grow while you can, figure out these problems, but you also don't have to work with everyone who comes to you. And a part of what we want to do is bring you better leads, not just any lead. We want you to get more leads that are in line. And so there is the option of, within the questionnaire, the intakes sequence that we do, weeding people out. You can build logic into the automation of your funnel that says, you're not a good fit for me. Thanks, but I'm going to have to kick you over here. I'll still send you emails. That's great, but I can't help you. That's okay. It is okay to turn people down if they're not a good fit.
And I want to add to, Nate asked me earlier about mistakes that practitioners make in tax resolution, and Christian brought that another good one is you don't have to take everything that comes in your door, and nor should you. If you see the warning signs, if you see that this is going to be a PETA client, or there's something that just, gives you the willies about it, hey, don't take them. But if you can do that and create, I like that idea. I've never actually thought about the wait list idea, but that creates scarcity. It drives up the value of you and your practice on top of that you're that busy, that you're that good, that I have to go on a wait list.
Lynn, one of our clients, has used a wait list and it's worked really well for them. John at the York, that's one filter. But yeah, I love the wait list idea. Also, I mean, it can help focus you, right? So if one of the reasons why you're not able to, sort of Christian alluded to this, the tension we want to put you guys in, if one of the reasons why you're not able to add staff is like revenue, or you're stuck doing these other things that other people could do, like this gives you a greener pasture that you can build towards, right? So when you build a tax resolution practice that has the capacity to handle more fees, and might be actually more rewarding than compliance work in a lot of ways, it just depends on kind of how you go after it. A lot of you are doing it for that reason. Like this enables you to sort of like fund the team that can handle the compliance work, so you can just deal with the stuff that you want to deal with, right, Dan? I mean, that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where, again, if once you finally realize your true value and your true worth, and you start billing what you're worth, and I always say, I say this to people, and I can say this because I'm one of them and I've been there before, but we as tax professionals, we're just cheap people. We don't want to spend, we don't want to spend the money, but
no.
because we don't see it. And like I said, I've working with Nate and Christian for a number of years, and they've helped open my eyes to a lot of different things. And I'm also not shy about spending money to
Hold
do
on just
things.
a sec. Christian has to bounce. I think he's got a shipment of fireworks he has to steward.
Got a lot of
for real. There's explosives arriving around the corner, so he needs to make sure that they don't blow up. So,
yes, handle with care.
Thanks, guys.
Yes,
Good
indeed. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah,
good job,
to see you, Christian.
And I'll stick around for as long as is needful.
And good luck with the baby.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye. But yeah, so just to go on that you've got to spend money to make some money, and if you charging the right fees, then it's easier to spend the money to pay for the advertising, to hire staff, to pay for better software or things. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing when you're bringing in these leads, they need to be automated. If you can automate them using the software, like say Infusionsoft that, you had on one of your slides, and put them in this email nurturing thing where you're not having to manage that, so to speak, and at least not like in the details where somebody emails you and you have to reply to your email all the
Andy,
time.
I promoted Andy to panelist. And
yes, welcome, Andy.
Are at a spot where you can do your video, so we can look at your very handsome mug. You might be on the phone.
I'm
But,
on my other computer, so I don't have video capabilities, but I appreciate the promotion.
yeah, man. Well, and just in terms of like capacity issues, this is sort of your wheelhouse. That's why I wanted to bring you in real quick. When people face these capacity issues, like how do you advise they proceed?
Yeah, well, I was just having some definite, recognition of what you're saying about needing the revenue to build your team. I know for us being quite seasonal, retaining and also advancing like your top team members, making sure they're earning more each year was always a challenge just from a pure numbers point of view, right? So if as a team leader or as the business owner, once we started getting into doing more tax problem resolution, getting at least a few clients each off season that were, $5,000 or more, we actually were able to start retaining the kind of best team members that really wanted to advance year round. And I think a key for that people can look at is making a real recording of how you're actually spending your time or investing your time now. Like on a day, I'm actually pretty fanatical for my own, like what am I actually doing on a day-to-day basis? And then once I see that for like a month or a quarter, I'll identify the things that I don't want to be doing, I'm not good at, or don't actually generate profit for the company. And then I know those are the things that I want to either eliminate or delegate. But I think a lot of us feel so busy, you guys, but that's kind of like all a blur. But taking that little extra 10, 15 minutes a day to record what you actually did that day, I think forms a good basis for either eliminating or delegating a lot of the busyness and focusing on some of those higher value activities.
Amen to that. That's
Does that
good.
make sense?
All right. That does. Thank you. That's what I wanted from you, brother. Appreciate it. And I'm going to have you on a webinar in the summer and the fall. And there's a live event that you're helping to organize that we're going to be participating in that I actually emailed you about this morning, Andy.
I saw that. Yeah, don't spill the beans
good.
quite yet, man. Don't spill the beans.
Oh, no spilling of beans. Okay. No bean spilling.
Medium bean spilling.
Medium bean spilling. All right. So great. Any other questions related to resolution for Dan or Dan put his link back in there. That's great. You can also, again, we've gotten a bunch of people already emailing Christian and people filling out the form at taxproleads.com. If you want to have the conversation about this, the point of this wasn't even necessarily to like do that. It was really to alert you to this new thing that we're seeing. So I hope that this has been useful. I hope that you guys have gotten value, and we're here to help however it looks, whether you become a client or not. We see it as our joy and work to come alongside practitioners of all kinds of stripes to make sure that they're doing this well and building their online real estate empire. I am so happy about this analogy I just thought of. Right? Can I get a witness? That's a great analogy,
Amen,
man. Right?
Brother. Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll kind of leave it there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Thank you, guys.